Good morning, everybody. Delighted to welcome you to our webinar on how to increase member engagement with AI-based CPD and learning. My name's Alan Reed. I'm a director of Get Savvy. I'm really happy to be tackling this topic today because one of the challenges that we keep hearing about year on, year out is that membership organizations don't really have enough resources, don't really have enough budget to do their learning management and L&D the way they'd like to deliver it. They can't create enough content. They can't spend enough on the delivery to individual members, and they have to make things a bit more generic than they'd like. Well, that's all changing now. It's an exciting moment in the L&D world, and I'm really delighted to be covering that and going through some of the options that are available at very reasonable costs we find in the industry to learning and development professionals. I'm really happy to welcome today Sarah Gasper. Sarah, do you mind just introducing yourself, a few words about yourself, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually an equine vet. My background is in veterinary medicine. I qualified over 20 years ago now. I spent 15 years working as a vet, driving around yards, seeing horses. And then family came along, and that became too tricky to juggle. So I have now moved into teaching, and I oversee all the CPD that our membership organisation Beaver runs, and have been there for 7 years after initially saying I'd do a year to get the LMS. I said I'd do a year to get the LMS sorted out, and then yeah, I'm still there.
Fantastic. And I'm particularly interested in hearing your thoughts as we go. Not only are you a veteran of your own LMS project, of course, your audience spends half their time in a field
Yeah.
or in a stable. And so, not a typical way of delivering learning to that crowd. So let's hear a bit more about that. Great. So let's crack on with the content. So first of all, before we get started, we'll be sending everything to you, the video, the presentation. So don't worry about taking notes, just engage with the content. We find there's a lot of interest in people's own LMS projects. So please do drop a question into the chat or the Q&A boxes, and we'll tackle those a bit later on. So if you don't know where to get started, or you're finding your project is whatever more expensive than you expected, or you're having trouble with it, or you put it in and no one's using it, please drop a question in, and we'll talk about that. So also then the content from this webinar is taken from our online self-paced course, which is called Managing Technology Change Projects for Business People. That's essentially designed for anyone who's facing a technology project in their own organization, and tells you everything you need to know not to fall flat on your face during your own project. We actually provide a discount code for that course, which is available at the bottom of the screen there. Great. So let's crack on. So just a couple of words about us. We provide LMS services for membership bodies in particular. We've been doing that for many years. Our goal is to ensure that organizations can achieve their ideal learning in an affordable way. We have our Indian-based team who could do everything from really specialized content creation at an affordable rate, to creating platforms that are license free, where you can spend all of your money on content instead of the platform itself. We also are 100% platform independent, so we spend a lot of our time helping people select the ideal LMS for themselves, or work out what's the best use of their money to get the optimum benefit out of that. Here are some example learning management systems we worked with over the last year or two. And then just to mention briefly that we do an awful lot of projects where it's really very much on a fixed budget. So we can do everything from, okay, we're starting from scratch and we'd like an LMS integrated to our website and CRM, and we've only got this much to spend, all the way through to we want something very, very sophisticated, and it has to have all of these special areas in it. And then, of course, very, very bespoke stuff where people might have a system that isn't working very well, but they need this change, or it needs a refurb, or it needs working with different technical partners to get things working. We do end-to-end LMS projects, or we do bits and pieces as you require. So one of the most common things we're asked to do, for instance, is to work out what should we do next? How much will it cost? What's the best option for us? And what would you do in our place, kind of thing. We also do an awful lot, of course, content creation, as I've said. And finally, we can do a refurb and a fix up and give you advice on your LMS as it stands. Okay, so let's get into the agenda. Finally, I think there's some really good changes happening and becoming available to membership organizations in the learning and development world. So let's talk about what the options are, what changes are coming, what you can now do that you couldn't do even 2 years ago, and in some cases less time than that. And then talk about actual costs that are available as well. Tools that are available in the marketplace, and how you can kind of punch above your weight and do more for your members without having to vastly increase your budget, just spending your money in a slightly different way. Again, please do remember to drop questions in on the chat or the Q&A so that we can talk about your own specific project as we go. So, how member learning is evolving, and why engagement matters. That last bit, why engagement matters, it's really important. One of the saddest kind of stories we hear on LMS projects, and we hear this story a lot, is that we've put the thing in and no bugger is using it. That's not quite the language that people will use, but we spent all the money, we've gone through all the stressful stuff, and we're not getting the engagement. We're not getting the take up from members, and there are often very clear reasons for that. So here are some of the challenges that L&D professionals are experiencing. I'm sure a lot of the people on this call are used to some of these. So first of all, there's an awful lot of competition now. It used to be back in the day that you were the only show in town, and the learning and the development and even the community came from the membership association. No more, as we know. So pretty much everything that most associations offer is available somewhere else in bits and pieces for free through a community of some type online, or through some kind of competitor providing it. So how do you be the go-to place for all of that L&D? How do you make sure that you're authoritative when it comes to that? We're seeing declining member engagement, partly because associations are not producing enough content. They're not keeping the stuff refreshed. In an age of Netflix, people are not happy if they come back a month later and you've still got essentially the same content as you had a month ago. So we're also seeing that digital fatigue, low retention are correlated. If your content essentially consists of a series of videos and nothing that people will see as personal to them or relevant to their own career, then they're going to engage with it an awful lot less. And then that kind of whole generic CPD. Our research, and we do a lot of research in the membership world, shows that the most important reason that people will remain within a membership organization is because it helps their career. It's going to help them make more money if you just put it that way. And that could be for a B2B organization or B2C organization. And if you're not demonstrating that you're adding value to their career, you're going to help them make more money, they'll vote with their renewal fee and they'll go elsewhere. So the pressure is really on the L&D team to really justify membership and keep people coming back. So there, as well as more opportunities now, there are more challenges now as our members are more digitally aware, digitally sophisticated. So Sarah, do you mind if I just get a comment from you or get your thoughts on this? So more than three quarters of people in your role and people in the delegates for this webinar from our research say that personalized learning is vital for engagement. In other words, you'd ideally be creating content for each subgroup within your membership, and you would ideally be making that relevant to them and their career and where they're going. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
Do you recognize those kind of figures from your own membership?
Yeah. Yeah. No, although we're a very niche area, we have quite a diverse bandwidth really of things that
Sure.
people can see and need to treat. So we have everything from horses with lameness issues all the way through to repro issues and everything in between, from tiny ponies that are hardly ridden to thoroughbred race horses, sports horses, everything. So we have quite a diverse uh, membership, and it's also a worldwide membership. So we also have members from third world countries who obviously don't even have half the kit or half the drugs that we are talking about regularly in the UK. So we we work to try and um, bunch things together. That's where we're looking at going so that we can make it easier for people because everyone's so much more time poor now
Yes,
than we ever
absolutely.
used to be. So, although it's nice to think that people will have time to sit down with their coffee on their coffee break and stuff and actually go through, or when they're sat in the car between calls, they'll actually have time to flick through and pick their next piece of CPD. It doesn't appear to work like that. So we are now trying to guide people down channels
Yes.
to make it more tailored for them and just make it easier and more obvious.
Absolutely. And actually the tools for doing that are now becoming affordable in a way that they weren't before. And of course, underpinning that, there has to be the content there in the first place.
Yes.
If you're going to guide someone down a path, it can't be a bridge that's
No,
out and they fall off.
no,
So
no,
absolutely. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. Just how do you make sure that you've got, in an age of Netflix, how do you make sure everyone's got enough content across the group when content is expensive to create? Why learning matters more than ever to members. Sarah, your audiences, and very much a plural on audiences, are a great example. It has to fit into their day-to-day work. We work with organizations where their members are healthcare professionals, and where they're working in wards. Just the traditional
on
view
the
of
feet.
nose against screen at a desk is not really there. And then, of course, we have people seeking to learn from each other. They want to learn from their peers and other members. And then, of course, people want things that, yes, they want compliance-based learning, but they also want interest-based learning and
Yeah,
niche area-based learning. So a key thing we find is that learning is a key value proposition for membership, and if you're not delivering it, then the price will be paid. This number, I actually expected it to be a little higher, but well over half of association members, this is the members of your associations, say they're not likely to renew without professional development opportunities. So this is the main reason they've joined. If you're not providing it, they're off, and you'll lose them as members. So that's the kind of case you need to be making to your finance directors within the associations. So the key challenges we find are along the lines with things like people are spending their money in the wrong place, just not to be too blunt about it. So the key challenges with things like content creation that will, to your point, Sarah, allow you to guide members down a path that helps them with their careers. The content has to be there in the first place. So a lot of organizations ask us, what should we do with our content creation and our content creation budget, or how much to ensure a good return on investment from our content? Now, the reality is historically, content creation used to be extremely expensive. It used to always involve specialist agencies. The sad fact is that most associations don't change their content at all. So you come back one month, it's still the same. You might have, a webinar recording or something along those lines. That's not really going to keep people coming back to you. So all of our research shows that there's the need to continually refresh that content to keep up with member expectations. Another common challenge that people on this webinar are reporting, and when we're researching your peers, is that learning and development projects are increasingly high tech. So it's very hard to know where to invest your money. And of course, the ongoing annual costs of the system itself can take away money from investing in the things you want to spend money on. How do people steer their little boat through all of these rocks in order to create something that their members are going to engage with. So what we've got here is that 82% of L&D professionals are saying that the most valuable element is a high volume of relevant content, and we're hearing that message over and over again. So, Sarah, in your own situation, how do you try and square the need to create higher volumes of content with, of course, like everyone, having scarce resources?
So it's really hard, frankly. Well, I have to say we are very guilty of having a vast amount of content that doesn't really change, and that's just lack of time to produce it. We do run live webinars every month, and we record those and put those up. And thankfully, I think that's what's keeping us going, and that's what people
Yes.
come to. Our quizzes and case scenarios, which theoretically I'm writing new ones every month. I don't think I've written a new one for several years, if I'm being honest,
That's
which
very
I know is
frank.
shocking. I
Thank
know
you.
it's awful,
But
but
everyone's in the
it's
same
just where I
position.
am.
Yes,
We also run like 40 attended courses, so I have those to organize and those are paid for. So actually, there's more financial pressure on those than there is on the free member benefit. So wrongly for membership, we probably we prioritize the paid for courses over the free member benefit, so it always gets pushed slightly back. The
yes,
live meetings that we do are really good. We get engagement during the session. We can post them afterwards, and we know that people do engage with that and do like them, and we try and respond to them. So if they ask for a topic, then I try and put that on in the next few months, just to keep it up to date. Um, and yeah, we try and make it as real to life as possible. So I'm trying desperately to move away from PowerPoints with people
yes,
talking over them. I'm trying to make it really real and look, delegates really enjoy hearing about what other specialists find difficult and how they
absolutely.
decision make their way through day-to-day challenges and thought processes. And then we try and bring the evidence in because we try and be evidence-led. We try and bring the evidence in that way rather than having slides and slides of tables and
Absolutely. And in
try and
fact,
make
one of
it
the things we're
real.
going to, no, those are great thoughts. And thanks for being frank about the challenges. One of the things we're going to talk about a little later is how you can take your micro content from the real world and turn that into L&D content using AI-based tools so that you can create the volume of content more cheaply than ever before. And it sounds like you're already doing some of those things. So when we survey people in your position, Sarah, and people on this webinar, what we find is what are your main challenges in these points? And actually, it's an awful lot of what you've just said there, Sarah. So first of all, there's a lack of personalization. The members themselves are saying, there's no point here. I've seen everything. I'm not coming back for that. So then they get commensurately, they get a low engagement with it. With the traditional LMS projects, there's been a difficulty in tracking what people are actually consuming, whether they're opting out of it, are they dip their toe in, or do they watch the whole thing, and do they, engage with the whole thing? Those things were poorly serviced, and then people have challenges with the technology itself, both in terms of things being disconnected and not fully integrated, and then the costs. We hear over and over again, I did not expect to spend tens of thousands of pounds a year just keeping the system up and running. And of course, every penny you're spending on keeping the system just up and running is a penny you're not spending on the content, which we know is what the members really want. We're hearing lots of complaints on traditional projects of how the learning is often disconnected from people's career progression, and therefore they're not valuing it. And then there's little visibility into how people are consuming it, whether they really value this thing, and whether they're going to keep coming back for more. So some real challenges there with traditional projects. So let's talk about how AI is able to change this for membership organizations. So we're doing all sorts of projects now where AI is a key feature. How to take advantage of these tools, how to make them available to your colleagues at low cost, so that they are actually delivering more with sometimes less money, so that they can turn that money into content. So essentially, what AI-based tools now allow you to do is create more content at scale. Look at those neglected groups that you've never been able to create content for before, create something for them. You're able to as part of the learner journey, you're able then to say make personalized recommendations. You're able to track follow-ups, what they should be doing next. So you can teach the AI about your learning content and then what different pathways people are going on, and that can be done very quickly. And then it will appear hyper personalized to your learners as they're going through. You're able to create more sophisticated content. An awful lot of content that people on this webinar are probably used to creating are essentially glorified PowerPoints with a back and forward button on it. They are essentially glorified PDFs with a back and forward button on it, no interaction with the learner, etc. AI-based tools allow you to create quizzes, allow you to create checking of your understanding, different types of interaction with that content, things that only a developer could do in the past. You're also able to give people guided advice on their own learning within your own content. And of course, do things like automate the feedback, automate the comments and questions and surveys, all of the things that used to cost an awful lot of money. And then, of course, providing personalized support, natural language querying, and allowing people to support each other as part of your learning platform, which is when things really start to take off. So those are the things you can do. So let's talk about how you do it in your own project. So first of all, let's just go through and look at some of the challenges. So we've talked about personalizing content and personalizing learning journeys. What AI-based tools now, and we'll talk about the actual tools in a second, is allow you to do is automatically match your CPD and learning with your career stages. So you define your different career stages that you expect to support as an organization. You then categorize your content, and you can use the AI to do that to some extent automatically with really high volumes. And then you match those two things together, what you want people to learn and how you want it to support their learning pathways. So then combining different types of content into things that could be provided within the LMS. So there are all sorts of great tools now for doing things like taking a webinar video, cutting it into snippets, turning it into little learning snippets that can be supported by text and interaction, and then produce micro learning snippets that can be provided either through social media, directly through your website, or as part of your LMS. Then, of course, personalizing and tailoring, we've talked about. User recommendations. One of the most common kinds of requests we get when we're doing a new LMS project with someone is, we'd like it to look like Netflix, please. That's become everyone used to say, oh, can we have my website look like Amazon? Now what we hear is, it's not a bad suggestion. I like it. People are very used to seeing things that are relevant and attractively positioned for them, and then it should be personalized to them. And you should be able to tag your own things, and it should learn from what you're tagging. So that is what people expect now. And I shouldn't be, saying just Netflix. It could be Disney Plus. Who cares? But anyway, the more modern tools like Docebo, Learn-upon, and in fact the latest versions of Moodle. Don't forget the open source stuff. Is also really embracing these AI-based content creation and learner journey management tools. Sarah, just to bring you in really briefly, I know we've talked in the past about some of what's on the landscape and some of what's available to you. Have you dipped your toe into AI a little bit? Do you expect to do more?
I would love to do more. I'm not actually a techie geek, and I actually find AI quite scary, in the way that it can learn and write stuff for you and almost impersonate you. But I think it's a huge thing. It's going to be here forever, and yeah, it can make life so much easier in so many different ways. So I have tried using it to write some questions. I tried this morning actually, just before this webinar,
Oh, great.
because I tried about a year ago and it wasn't very impressive. So I've asked it to write me a multiple choice question this morning, and it's come up with something fairly reasonable actually. It needs a bit of editing. But yeah, it's very useful. I've also asked it to try and generate me an image of a wound on a horse, but it's still thinking about that one. Probably some using the freebie one, so it's
Yes,
quite
yeah, that,
slow.
that, that might be it. I think so that's really good, Frank, but it's not all there. Absolutely. I think some of the key advice we give on AI-based projects and how to take advantage of them is it's not going to replace the human being. Don't think it's going to be, everyone gets a P45, etc. Um, uh, it will often get things wrong. You can be over reliant on it. You can let yourself down if you're not curating everything. So yes, really good points. Okay, so moving on from there. So then we talk about implementing adaptive learning paths. So this one people will understand very quickly, but essentially traditional LMS projects have been really static. There's a certain amount of content. The most that associations have done have said, oh, these types of members can see this, and these kind of members can see that, but then it never changes after that. And in fact, I'd say on a solid two-thirds of association projects, everyone just gets everything. And it just appears, like a very neglected, dusty shelf of books. So implementing adaptive learning with the presumption you now have the resources to create more content, we find is a huge part of having members feel the value of your learning offering. So greater relevance, higher engagement, and higher learner autonomy, where they're able to guide themselves through the content and get more value from it. One of the complaints often is that learners say we can't find anything, and because the navigation is poor or the search is poor. Sarah, to your point, you've got huge amounts of content, but are people getting all the benefits if the search is poor and they can't find it? So we find that to be really important. We find another thing, AI-powered content creation. And making AI your content accessible and digestible. So what we are seeing a lot now is that instead of content creation being, oh, here's a PDF and I'm going to turn it into a back and forth process, you're actually able to enable things like voice to text learning and AI-driven avatars. So all of our research shows, and all of the industry research supports this as well, that people like to learn in different ways, and textual-based learning is only good for a certain number of people. And everyone, even people who like textual-based learning, also like to have things read out to them, spoken to them, to be able to have it in a more visual way. So now that's available in a very cost-effective way, and a lot of it can be automated. You don't need a developer for it anymore. Um, Able to use natural language processing. So you're able to ask your course in the middle of your course to summarize or to explain something in a way that you hadn't understood it before, and to give you more detail on the thing. So I'm using an AI-based tool at the moment to learn French, for instance. And when there's a sentence that I don't understand, what verbs did you use and what conjugations and why is it that? It'll just explain to me, oh, we use that because of that. And you just have to live with it. That's the way the French do it. So now people can interact with content in a way that was never available before. You can use the AI to translate really technical documents into natural English as well, and you can do that in the middle of content or in addition to the courses that you've got. And then, of course, the whole instructional design process from, oh, should we have a course about this, all the way through to something that's been digitized and put up on your platform. Every single step of that can now be facilitated and made easier. Essentially, we're all doing it now with things like ChatGPT, but it's now structured around learning management systems and every stage of that process. So the kind of tools that we're used to, ChatGPT, etc., but then tools like Synesthesia that take your text and put it in front of an actor, an AI-driven actor reading the text. Now those actors can do very natural moving around the room kind of acts. So it's becoming harder and harder to tell whether it's an actor or an AI-driven avatar. And of course, that then makes your content vastly more accessible, vastly more interesting. People can walk along listening to it whilst they're in there on the ward, or they're heading to their next appointment. And it doesn't have to just be purely desktop and text-based. Always on chatbots and support. I think we get the idea with that. Most of us are starting to come to experience those things. A lot of the time, we just try and get away from it and say, speak to an agent, speak to an agent. But with learning management systems, you're able to ask for things that are more niche, recommendations. What should I do next? I'm trying to do this. What's the appropriate content for me? And it's better at those things than general help desk, we find. Then there's the stuff that helps you as a learning and development manager. By the way, we've had a really good question come through on Q&A. So please drop in your own questions, and we look forward to tackling that really shortly when we get to that section. So please drop your own Q&A questions in as well on anything we're talking about today. Um, Using predictive analytics, I find to be really important. So a lot of the problems that a lot of the learning managers we talk to say is we just don't know what's going on. We have a sneaking suspicion that people aren't engaging with our content the way we'd like, but we really don't know enough about it. So with AI-driven tools, now you can point it at your LMS and your data and any other kind of related data. And you're able to get these real insights that will guide you on where it's worth spending your money. Most of this stuff is now built into modern tools, but there are other tools that you can just point into older tools and link them together. Sarah, can I ask from your experience, have you historically felt that you had a good grasp of what people were consuming and what they'd like more of, or is it a little bit of a black box?
Um, the live content is quite straightforward. We've got lists of who's registered and we've got lists of who's attended, and we can see what we benchmark against what's published from other medical membership organizations and things like that. So that's fairly straightforward. The on-demand content that's on the LMS is much more difficult. You can get a feeling for it, and I can
Sure.
pull off data, um, but actually the data's not 100% accurate because we don't know. We know who's accessed what pages, but we don't know whether they've actually completed stuff. So we don't know whether they're flicking onto a page, looking at it, going, actually, I don't like the look of
Yes,
that,
that's
and
really
then
common.
leaving, or whether they're staying and doing it. Because for our pages, they have to tick a box to say they've completed it. And we all know that everyone's rubbish at doing any extra steps. And usually they're rushing off to do something towards the end anyway. So they never tick the box, or very few, I think, people tick the box. So our accuracy of the data. I can pull off data, but I doubt the accuracy of it,
Yes.
which is has been a niggle for me since we started the project 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, started
Yeah.
using it 7 years ago, and
You're
having, yeah.
absolutely not the Lone Ranger on that one. Sorry, Sarah. Just sorry. Were you going to finish that point?
No, no, no. It's just like something that would I've written that down. I'd love to be able to pinpoint things,
Absolutely. And what we are
behavior.
seeing now is that there is the more granular data, but data is no use unless it's turned into information. So making it more visual is something that's much more common now in these tools. So then delivering something like gamification. People have been talking about gamification since LMSs were first, coming onto the scene kind of 12 years ago. And it's one of those things that's talked about an awful lot and not often delivered because it's expensive. Historically has been very expensive to do. And it's a level above just presenting the content to someone. Turning it into something that people can interact with is harder. Actually now that's becoming affordable, and the real-time results of people genuinely consuming the content and genuinely being interested and genuinely feeling like they've got something to walk away from. All the research shows that is happening. So with the AI-based content creation tools and the AI-based LMS add-ons and so on, you're able to create things like yes, interactive leaderboards, content within the courses that people can interact with. You're able to erect a scenario across the content where people can take quizzes all of the way through or have little challenges all of the way through, and it'll either send them down this path or that path, depending on how they do. And that can be made very visual. It can be done with avatars. It can be done with cartoon figures. It could be done in a more serious way. But the difference is that it used to cost many thousands to consider this, and I've worked on projects going back a long, long time where it would cost something like £20,000 an hour of content to do this kind of stuff. And now that's becoming, available. Any 14-year-old can create TikTok videos with this stuff in it for free, and associations can now do it at vastly cheaper cost for the sake of learning how to use the tools. So it's a whole new world of sophisticated content that's now becoming available. In terms of people valuing your content and coming back for more, we find that to be a hugely important add-on. So then being able to create AI generated assessments and micro learning. So I'll just do this really quick because it's the same point essentially. You can even use things like ChatGPT. Sarah, did you mention that you've used ChatGPT to come up with some of your check your understandings or exam questions?
Yeah, so I use ChatGPT to write some questions. But there's all sorts of things that I'm looking at using it for. So to précis papers, pull out points of things, and just yeah, I think you need to the caveat is always you've got to know what you're talking about yourself, so you can spot when it's made mistakes or when it's just made something up.
Exactly. And so everyone's used to the free thing in ChatGPT. Um, in the world of AI supported L&D, what you're doing is you're teaching the AI tools you're using about your course content. You're teaching them about your learning objectives, and that's the kind of framework that you have. So you're not starting everything from scratch with the free ChatGPT version, and you get better responses and better support from that. You still, to your point, Sarah, absolutely have to curate everything, and don't just send it on and hope for the best, as of course you never would. Okay, so then we have building AI-based learning, AI-driven or AI-supported learning communities. We've been banging this drum for many years, which is that getting your members to interact with each other or to act as your advocates for your content, act as your advocates for anything that you're providing is one of the most powerful things that you can do. It's particularly powerful when it comes to recruiting younger members because younger members are not looking at LinkedIn. They're not going to receive your e-shots, etc. So what they will look at is they will look at content from their peers, their peer group. So the big challenge with engagement for members and having other potential members value your content is somehow to get into the feeds of your young people, to get into the feeds of your existing members, I should say, whatever age group, I guess. But particularly younger people are immune to other forms of promotion that you might be trying to push. So what we are seeing now is that you can use AI-driven tools to create and manage learning communities, detect what people are really interested in, detect what members are most have the highest propensity for engaging with your content, and then tackle them maybe on a human level, and then allow ongoing peer-to-peer commentary, ongoing peer-to-peer engagement through forums, through people being able to comment on your content, having that moderated, and then having that pushed outwards. It really does create a community around your content, which really has a huge ROI benefit on that. So there are different tools that will support that. We're happy to talk about those things. Let's talk about the money. Are AI-powered learning tools affordable? So the answer is yes. Pretty much for any budget we're confronted with in the association world. And there are AI-based tools that could really facilitate and do an awful lot more. So what we're seeing is that there are a series of freemium tools. We talked about that. So ChatGPT, you can do the free thing. I use the 20 quid a month version because I'm using it to learn French and I wander around talking to it all day. So basically, it really cost effective, and you can do an awful lot with it these days as well. The tools can be told more about your organization, so they remember it at the next conversation. Add-ons to existing platforms. So a lot of LMSs now. You can't sell an LMS in the association world or commercially without talking about your AI credibility, all of the great AI tools that you've got. Some are built in, some have added them on, but essentially they are increasingly available. And if you're talking to an AI provider, of course, they'll be talking about that a lot. Open source options are more sophisticated now than ever before. So one of the most common kinds of projects that we get asked to do is actually to create a low-cost LMS to replace a high cost LMS. Because these days you have to have a really good reason to be using a licensed product and spending tens of thousands of pounds a year to the software supplier instead of spending the money on your content. And then we have pay-per-use models where there's no need for large upfront investments. People can use an AI-based tool for creating content, for instance, or doing analytics, and they just use it for that project. And they use it for a month, and then don't use it for the rest of the year until you've got your next big project to do. Okay. And then our budgeting advice to organizations we're working with is always start small, engage with a subset of tools and get familiar with them, make sure you're getting value out of them, and then go to the next thing. Don't try and change everything at the same time. Prioritize high impact areas. So personalization and learner analytics tend to be the things that will give you the most bang for your buck early on in your project. Get the most out of your existing team. They will snatch this stuff out of your hands. Some of them are doing it anyway and not telling you. So formalize your AI usage and have an amnesty, and then get your teams really to be familiarize it. It's just a tool, so it just helps you create more content, helps you do better for your learners, and everyone can be using it. And then have a conversation with us. If you're in the position where you're spending too much money on the platform itself, so you're not spending money on your content, that's one of our most common projects. Come and talk to us, and we can talk about where you can allocate your budgeting differently or do different things with your money to get more out of it. Okay, so the ROI element is we find to be very important. Some of the big things about the AI tool set that people are using, reduced admin time. So the stupid computer is doing an awful lot more because you've taught it what you want, and it's managing the ongoing student life relationship, the recruitment, the surveying, the feedback. We do see a 100% an increase in member retention and satisfaction. People feel more personally treated. They feel that they're getting more out of their membership fee. Vast volumes of content creation changes. So we're working with organizations that say we're creating 5 times the amount of content we used to create with the same people and with the same budget. So those are remarkable differences that I think could really benefit the association world. And then, of course, better data and analytics. So you're not working in a black box. And I guess maybe this will work, maybe that won't. You've got really clear data supporting all of those things. So really, sample cost ranges here are microscopic budgets compared to many organizations we work with have spent large numbers of tens of thousands getting the platform in place, large numbers of tens of thousands just keeping it alive every month, and none of that is going to content, and none of that is going to what their members really value. So these kind of costs for AI-based tools are really really minuscule. Okay, so what I'd like to do then is, so we're just making the point here. You don't really need a big budget for your L&D project. So what I'd like to do from here is we created our own course. We were early pioneers of AI-based tools going back 2 years ago, and we were able to do it with very few people and with the resources we have as a small organization, and we were able to create something. We've had over 8,000 people go through this course now, so something went right. And the feedback from the course, people taking the course, has always tended to be, I need to get the rest of my team to take this course, or I expected it to be dry and boring, and it was really interesting. So let's go through how we did that and where we used AI to do that. So first of all, what we did it's part of our LMS platform. So what I'll do is I'll just sign in to that and just go through the sign in process. I'm jumping into my course status here within the course, which is managing technology change projects for people who've never done or are faced with a big technology project in their own organization. And you can see here all of the modules that make up the course, everything from creating your business case, planning and resourcing, how do you do requirements gathering, how do you run a vendor selection. So what we did is we created half an hour, 40-minute modules for everything from how do you do testing, how do you manage your supplier, how do you get your colleagues on board, all of those things. Finally, there's the the assessment at the end, and I'll give you a tour of the AI-based features there. So what I'll do is I'll jump into the module here, which is the vendor selection module, and it gives you an overview of where you are in the course. And it's AI tutor driven here with we're getting a conversation about what's in the course. So if I jump into the supplier selection here, click on that. Um, what the first thing is, it'll step you through the learning outcomes for each module. So it also takes the opportunity here to mention that most modern tools that were, I'd like to say that the tools that we're using automatically provide things like multilingual support. So you could have this in any language you choose, in including the text or the voice. Here's where we, for instance, introduce your project team and your project stakeholders. We used avatars to make up your different stakeholders. So the finance director will tell you what she wants, the operations director will tell you what she wants out of the project, and those characters in your project really bring it to life and make sure that people feel like they're engaging with something that's interesting. So what we always do within our course content is create real world scenarios. So for instance, these people are arguing and can't agree on the right vendor. These people are too busy to take part in the project. What do you do? And
What is the
let's just
best
hear the
way to
audio
make
as
sure the
well.
process to select a supplier is fair and legal?
There are some key things we can do to make sure everyone can see the process is fair and auditable. We have to make sure the rules and criteria of the selection process are made clear to all the suppliers in the RFP and also to our internal selection team. All potential suppliers are treated equally. For instance,
So I'll just zap through that. But essentially, what we can see here is that you're able to create what would be actors, and they introduce the content, and they can have a conversation about the content. And in some of our scenarios, they have a bit of an argument about, oh, well, I think this vendor is busy. Oh, I'm too busy. I've got a big conference coming up. You have to leave me alone for 3 months. And then we pose the question back to the learner, what do you do? Here are your options. What would you take this pathway through there? So, by the way, the audio doesn't come across fantastically well on Zoom. And I think for our more recent courses, we've settled on a UK accent. But the fact is that all of this stuff used to not be available at all. Now it's available in a more sophisticated way than ever before. It's even moved on since we did this 2 years ago. So, with every bit of content, we always provide things like downloadable content, actual usable templates on your own project, for instance, a project status report, a budget tracker, and all of those things. And those are all downloadable and interacting with the content. We serve them up to people as we go through. One of the most important things then is the kind of check your understandings in interactions. So it becomes very easy to do very visual checking and question answering, but also every question and where they might get it right or wrong. I've got that one wrong. It gives you answers here. And what you can do on the later versions is say, what do you mean by that? Or you can actually quiz the course itself. But even at this level, it's giving you very personalized feedback of what you did right or what you did wrong. If I drag these over here to be a different type of interaction with people, I can just drag them in and say that's where I think these different phases go. And again, when I submit it, oops, I've got that wrong as well. But it's giving me feedback of where I got it wrong. And then essentially what I can do next to do it better. As we go through, it's not only giving me the results, it's telling me what I can do about the results. It gives me content recommendations for modules I can go back to, or even additional courses that I can study to familiarize myself. So it's really monitoring how I'm doing and giving me very personalized feedback. So all of these things we did using AI-based tools a couple of years ago. It's now easier to do that than even then. And that's been a huge part of the take-up of this course and the enormous feedback, and then people giving each other recommendations, oh, you must do this course. So all of that really makes a huge difference. Within the final assessments, we created, the final assessment has 50 questions in it, and we just have different types of questions in it. So this is simple multi-choice. This one's true and false. This one here is multi-choice. At the end of all of that, and just for the sake of speed, essentially, we then provide a very personalized certificate that's delivered within the course. It's accredited by these organizations here, so actually it's proper and serious. We went through a lot of work to get it accredited. And then there's actually a digital indicator here. So it's your certificate. It's really good. You can put it on your CV, and employers can then go and check, or you hand it over as part of your assessment, and you look vastly better for that. So that took a lot less time to create than you might expect. And the AI-driven tools that we use to do that enable us to do it at a reasonable pace, but also are hugely responsible for the take-up for the thousands of people that then take the course and then give positive recommendations about it afterwards. Okay, I'm just going to then go through a quick recap back to our content. So I think our main recommendations here, just for the sake of time, are essentially that we want to encourage you to take a look at the AI-based tools that are available, take advantage of them, look at what is available to you now that just wasn't before, and focus on things like personalization, buy-in, engagement, promotion of your courses, student life, but also making sure that it's relevant and targeted to people and that you're able to create more volume. Okay. So from there, what we found is that the right tools can really, bring your learning strategy to life and get vastly better take up than you're used to learning. When you're going to talk to your finance director about, getting help for this or doing this, say it isn't the future. It's here, and we're a bit behind, frankly, and our members are at risk of noticing it. Small steps we find do make a big difference. And then, of course, that whole thing about getting loyal members who keep coming back for more and for whom renewing is a no-brainer is all about that topic of personalization. So let me just, before we get to the Q&A, we're just coming to the last bits. But before we get to the Q&A, I'd really like to understand where people are in your own projects. So I'm just going to launch a poll here, if I may. And if people could just take a minute. The first question is, what's your current position when it comes to your own L&D projects and your own LMS position? So do you have one and it's really working well for you? You've got one, but you're not getting the best out of it. You're considering it in the future. You haven't dipped your toe in yet, or you really just don't need one. And then the next question below there is, how would you describe your L&D offering to your members? So we're saying here, it's a great offering and everyone's happy. It's all working well. You've got great content, but poor technology. And then you need to improve both your content and your technology. I'm only going to give that a few more seconds because I want to get to the Q&A questions. Okay, so, and I'm going to end. There we go. And if I share the results of that, I hope you'll find the results interesting. Glad to see that about a third I've got an LMS that's working well for them. But actually 2/3, and this chimes with industry research, an awful lot of projects where people are just not getting what they need to out of it. They've spent the money, but they're not getting the take up. They're not getting the benefits. And then some are still waiting to dip their toe in. And then when we talk about the benefits to your members, you're offering to your members, I'm afraid only 20% feel that it's really working well. And then half feel that this is really common, got great content, you've got all sorts of IP within your organization, but the technology is not there to deliver it really, really well. And some feel that you don't have content or technology. And actually, a lot of what we've been talking about today will help you with both of those things. Great. That's really, really helpful. Thanks so much for the survey responses. So I just want to get to some of these really great Q&A questions on here. So question number one was, what are the risks of not owning the IP with using AI to create content? After 2 years of this now and working with projects, essentially, it's very clear that the IP remains with the content creator. So we've had all sorts of conversations with LMS providers, with AI tool providers, and it's written into their terms, and you can get it very much clarified that the IP remains with the content provider. That is a concern that has largely been assuaged. Of course, if you were working on a highly confidential report for government or something, and you ask ChatGPT about it, you are telling ChatGPT about something it doesn't know about already. So don't do that thing. But in terms of creating content and then who owns the content afterwards, that has turned out not to be a concern. Thank you. So as someone, and then the next question is, as someone who's never used ChatGPT, where do I recommend getting started, and what tool do I need for what job? Is it safe from a data security perspective? So we've talked about that last point, and I will say that the IP remains with you. Don't give it content that the rest of the world is not supposed to know about. That is still theoretically a risk. But in terms of if never using any of the AI tools before, please simply reply back to the email that we'll send you after this, and we can have a conversation about it. One of the things we do is lots and lots of no-cost conversations. We can give you some free pointers on where to get started, as well as helping in a more structured way if that's helpful. But let's have a conversation about that, about how to get started, but also how to get the culture of your organization accepting that AI tools are going to be used, and how do you assuage the fears that people feel they're going to get fired, or you're going to start giving your IP to the world. That's equally as important as what tool. What tool do I use for language learning? I use ChatGPT with the £20 a month add-on, and then I can have nice conversations with it. But I use it about a dozen other tools as well. So this one, Sarah, do you mind if I position this one with you as well? This one here says, as an organization, if we decided to begin using AI, do you think we need an AI policy? And if yes, what do you think it must include to consider? So the short answer for me is yes, and I've got all sorts of thoughts about what it should consider. But Sarah, I know that AI is something that's been talked about in lots and lots of organizations. What are your thoughts on the organization creating an AI policy and getting that to be socialized amongst people?
I think you need to have one. I think as an organization, you should have a position on AI and its use. I actually ran a course on AI, the use of AI in equine practice. It finished last week. And we looked at how to get policies in and how to get them more embedded. And actually surveying the delegates there, we had about 50 or so delegates turn up to it. And a large proportion of them, I can't remember the number, were using AI in work time for work, but without work's knowledge.
Yes.
So what was suggested was that there was an amnesty, no blame,
Right.
no comment, start to find out what people are doing in your membership organizations, whether they're already using it at work and they're just not telling you.
They are.
They probably are. Yeah. And what they're using, and then deriving a policy that takes into account those things, rather than coming down hard and saying, this is our policy, you now must abide by it, and being the hammer, really.
Yes.
So try and involve them in the creation of the policy, and hopefully you'll get better compliance and better uptake and understanding of it.
Absolutely. And there's another question about what would typically be in a policy. So I think you've hit the nail on the head with a lot of that. So the amnesty element is really important. Everyone's using AI-based tools. It's just that, they pretended they worked on this thing for hours, and then here it is in 2 minutes flat. So just accept this is just a tool. It's like using Word or Excel or PowerPoint. There's no reason to think of it in any other way. Or well, maybe as a more sophisticated thing with some more risk attached. Now, let me retract that last any other way thing. But it is primarily a tool, and your policy and your governance around it should all be about transparency and human verification, human checking, because there are things like this thing could be getting its information for the Daily Hate Mail, or some awful other newspaper. So you want to. There's elements of here is the policy. We're going to train the AI on where it gets its information from. and we're going to carefully vet it, and et cetera, et cetera. Here's how it will be used. Here's how it will be checked. And here's what you're allowed to do, and here's what you're not allowed to do. So yes, you hit the nail on the head there. We've got a pragmatic question. Did we get savvy build our whole course using AI? So the layout where you click, or just the content of the course. So this is going back 2 years ago. And so the tools were a lot less kind of built in, and a lot less available then. So the main thing we used AI for 2 years ago was the AI-driven tutors, the avatars that would give voice to the content and guide people through the content and have the discussions about the scenarios and so on. So back then we created the storyboards ourselves, something you don't need to do by hand anymore. You can, create the Word documents, etc., or tell it broadly what you want to do, and AI-based tools will create your storyboarding for you. We created the quizzes ourselves. We did an awful lot of it ourselves. These days, when we're doing new courses, we approach it very, very differently, that we get the AI tool to do an awful lot more of the legwork. And the human task becomes knowing what you want out of it, and curating it, and checking it. So you can create, so something that would have taken months to create in the past can now be created in vastly less time. So you create a vastly higher volume. So as I say, we were early pioneers in that. Now the projects we work with clients, where we're creating content with them and for them, or guiding them on their options for creating content, there's a much heavier use of AI with guardrails to essentially make sure that you're getting more of what you want, and getting those other benefits like targeting other neglected member groups, or making sure that your content is continually refreshed. So great. Thanks very much, everybody, for the Q&A questions. Let me just say as well, I just wanted to remind people that please do have a conversation with us about any areas you're thinking about on your L&D projects. Our whole thing is about making sure that you've got enough money to spend it on the content. All of our research shows that's what your members really value. I just want to thank everyone for attending. And please do take advantage of the discount on the course. We'll send you the everything out afterwards. Please get in touch for any questions. We do an awful lot of free pointers and so on. So let's have a conversation, and we can hopefully set you on the right path. We've got a whole bunch of really fantastic webinars coming up. So this is everything from how to get the most out of AI, how to manage your budget, how much should an LMS project really cost you, how can you make sure you're getting the most out of your money, and then how do you create the overall best learning policy and learning development program within your organization. So those are all available on our website now. I'll send you the links after this webinar. It only remains to thank you, Sarah, so much for your fantastic insights and comments and frankness. I'm sure everyone feels like they're not the Lone Ranger on their own projects anymore. So thank you so much for that.
No worries.
Great, and great to see you again. And everybody, thanks so much for joining the webinar, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.